Reddit asks, what habit is surprisingly damaging? Mentally replaying fictional arguments to be prepared just in case seems harmless, but it keeps you in a constant internal struggle with people who aren't even present. During a period of depression, my therapist told me to avoid self-deprecating humor because you know it's a joke, but your brain doesn't. So it just contributes to the negative internal dialogue your brain is already dealing with. In my case, I decided to change all my self-deprecating humor to, well, the opposite, and I was amazed at how it transformed the way I interact with the world. Instead of saying, what can I say? I'm the worst, I say, fun fact, I'm the coolest person who ever lived. Instead of thinking, I think I should end it all, I say, actually, I've never been wrong in my life. Even with sarcasm, even as a joke, it helped me not dwell so much on the negative. At my last job, my whole team started introducing me as the best and the coolest. Grief can cause serious physical and psychological effects. A 2014 study concluded that the odds of suffering a heart attack in people over 60 doubled in the first 30 days after losing a partner. I almost lost my mind and was on the verge of suicide due to severe sleep deprivation and mental changes caused by the grief over my father's suicide. I was on the verge of a psychotic break. It is crucial to see a therapist shortly after losing a loved one to minimize the impact. Sitting for long periods has been linked to numerous health problems like heart disease, diabetes, and even premature death. A sedentary lifestyle can have serious health consequences, sometimes even worse than smoking. Negative thought cycles. Absolutely. The most negative people I know are all in very difficult situations in life, and it is always due to their own decisions derived from their constant stream of negative thoughts. People underestimate the importance of surrounding themselves with positive people because negativity can quickly drag you down. ChatGPT, an excellent way to destroy your critical thinking skills and your ability to socialize normally at the same time. I have a friend who has always been quite shy and socially insecure, and she has become addicted to ChatGPT, which has only made things worse for her. Talking to a friendly bot program to always agree with you gives the feeling of socializing, but in reality, she is just sitting staring at a screen while real life passes her by. 3 years ago, my daughter passed away at just 34 minutes old. It was the first step into deep grief. Last year, I discovered my partner was cheating on me, and he left me. I wasn't sleeping, wasn't eating, was consuming more stimulants, and wasn't taking care of myself at all. I look 10 years older, and that's just what I see on the outside. Sarcastic cruelty in a relationship. Sarcasm is a complex brain function. Although both parties logically know that cruelty means just the opposite, the most basic brain functions still experience distress. It all accumulates. If you have a partner, be sincere. I don't know if it's more damaging, but consuming caffeine every morning is terrible. I've had friends who drank coffee daily and tried to quit to save money, but they stay groggy all day and never fully wake up. It's crazy that we've normalized dependence on a substance that has to be taken every morning and sometimes throughout the day. The truth is that saying it's normal is an understatement. People look at you weird when you say you don't drink coffee. Being very stressed or anxious all the time and having poor quality sleep. The good thing is that these problems can be solved within your reach. Try psychological therapy, getting sunlight and spending time in nature, meditating or praying, exercising and practicing a physical hobby that allows you to enjoy the present moment, improving your diet and gut health, and reducing screen time to read a book. This point is debatable, but I have found sources claiming that consuming the magic green plant is more harmful than tobacco. Apparently, the main mechanism is deeper inhalation compared to a cigarette. Due to this deeper inhalation, one magic green plant cigarette is equivalent to consuming between 3 and 4 tobacco cigarettes. Hoarding. You simply don't feel like you're doing anything wrong. You just live with the things you own, and you have every right to keep them. You don't want to lose them, and due to the supposed difficulty, you ignore the need to tidy up the house from time to time until the task piles up and becomes as difficult as you imagined or even more so. And at that moment, you have your excuse, and everyone around you supports you because they don't see clutter as a problem either, but they do confuse hoarding with clutter. And that is all the hoarder believes they have, a messy room, not a hoarding problem. Friends who don't communicate because they are bad at texting end up damaging the relationship, as their lack of attention, response, or priorities is a true lack of consideration for the other person. I would say being the friend who is always late also falls into this category of lack of consideration. Always arriving late. Yes, time blindness exists, but if you need a stable job to live, obviously you can be punctual if it is strictly necessary. Arriving late constantly conveys the message that your time is worth more than others. Many people take it so casually, but it turns out to be so rude and sometimes very much resembles a strange show of power. There are people who get angry frequently but don't tell their partner what's wrong. I recently talked to a friend about this, and if you live with your partner, that tone is exhausting. It creates a tense atmosphere at home. It forces the other person to guess why you are angry. And in general, these people seem to lack emotional intelligence. A tone of voice may seem harmless, but when maintained like that for days and accompanied by isolation, it makes for a terrible partner. Shopping addiction. If it gets out of control, you could spend a huge amount of money. The purchase produces momentary satisfaction, but then you end up buying something else, and the situation can quickly get out of control. Source: I am addicted to buying clothes, but now I have become addicted to Lego sets. I have already spent almost all my savings. Sleep deprivation. Truthfully, at first, it doesn't seem that serious until it gets out of control. I had a baby about 2 weeks ago. I sleep only 4 hours a night. It's crazy. When I saw news of a storm last week, I had to ask my wife if it had really happened. I was completely dazed. I thought maybe I had dreamed it. Loneliness. Living alone and seeing my friends only once a month has definitely aggravated the problem. And I even go to the gym 4 days a week and notice no improvement. A study revealed that among men, losses from ending their existence are associated with loneliness and even more so with indicators of objective isolation, such as living alone. In this study, which covered more than 500,000 middle-aged adults, the probability of losing one's life more than doubled among men living alone. I hope no one else feels the same and succumbs to despair. If this is your case, I am here to listen. I can't give advice, but I can listen. Untreated and undiagnosed ADHD reduces life expectancy as much as being a heavy smoker. So I guess I have much less time left than I thought between not treating my attention deficit and smoking a pack a day. We are more prone to other problems like depression and addiction. I myself suffer from depression and anxiety and was an alcoholic in my teens. If I recall correctly, people with attention deficit are 40% more likely to develop an addiction because we already have a dopamine deficiency. So when we experience something that gives us a big dopamine hit, our brain clings to it more strongly than in a person without attention deficit. When someone insists you tell them something you don't feel comfortable talking about, as if saying, "Please, tell me," instead of respecting that maybe you don't feel comfortable talking about something personal or that it's none of your business, they try to make you feel you can trust them, but in reality, they just make you feel uncomfortable, annoyed, and like you are being interrogated. If someone doesn't feel comfortable talking to you about something personal, say, "Okay, sorry for being so nosy and making you uncomfortable. I'm here if you need anything from me." This is coming from an introvert, but using introversion as an excuse to isolate oneself and avoid social contact. Of course, a balance is necessary to feel good and be happy according to one's own standards, but I have seen friends and family become chronically dependent on the internet and isolate themselves. And their social skills have deteriorated so much that they can't be out of the house for more than an hour or maintain a fluid conversation. They appear irritable and distrustful and constantly talk about what they see on the internet. We are social beings. There are parts of our brain that need social interaction to function properly and stay healthy. And chronic isolation has a negative impact on our mental health. Checking your phone as soon as you wake up. We all do it, and it doesn't seem like a big deal, but it's brutal. You get up, and before even thinking about yourself, you see the whole world. News, debts, messages, misfortunes. Your day starts in alert mode. I realized one day I dreamt about answering emails, literally. I woke up tired. I turned off notifications for a week, and it was like lifting a weight off my chest, but it's hard, it's addictive. Checking the phone is like biting a fruit that is sweet at first and then bitter. It steals your presence. You are no longer in bed, you are in 1,000 places at the same time, and the body resents it. Anxiety, insomnia, stress. No one tells you, but checking your phone first thing is the most modern way to hate your mornings. When my cat died, I was devastated. I had never experienced grief like that before, and I had no idea how bad I was going to feel physically. I was exhausted no matter how much I slept. My whole body ached as if I had done a very hard and exhausting hike. And I woke up like that every day for 2 weeks. My vision was blurry from crying so much. I had never given importance to the physical aspects of grief. But now I do, and all this for a cat. Imagine the impact if it involves a person. Being overweight. Obesity, heart disease, and a myriad of other health problems are due to people getting too used to being overweight. It kills people much more than other things. So much so that people prefer to campaign to accept it rather than culturally change that perception. Not eating properly. And I don't just mean what you eat, but also how you eat. It is one of the main causes of stomach discomfort. 0. Many take medication to reduce heartburn because they refuse to change their lifestyle habits, which can have long-term consequences. Excessive consumption with the justification of treating yourself. I like having things that make me happy and are of good quality, but there is so much cheap junk people fill their houses with because capitalism has brainwashed me. I have no decision-making power, I have to give in. Comparing yourself to others sounds obvious, but it is more corrosive than it seems. You think you are just observing, but in reality, you are punishing yourself. You compare yourself to your friend who earns more, your cousin who travels, the neighbor who has a new car, and every time you do, you steal a little bit of joy from yourself. The worst part is that today you don't even need to leave the house. Social networks are a catalog of edited lives. You look for 20 seconds and feel like you're behind, and of course, you start buying things, forcing yourself to be on that level. You don't realize it, but you go into debt out of anxiety, not necessity. Comparing becomes automatic, and the saddest thing is that it never leaves you satisfied. There is always someone with more. Habitual complaining and negative language. The use of hurtful words and phrases may seem harmless or funny to many. However, there are more and more studies showing that the brain processes negative language similarly to violence, with a gradual toxic effect for both the speaker and the listener. It is essential that many people understand that curbing the impulse to speak in a hurtful and contemptuous way, unless truly necessary, is almost as important as curbing the impulse for violence. Not checking your confirmation bias is something really toxic in this era of lies and blatant deception, from corporations to politicians and media. You have to check sources and keep an open mind at all times. Sleep apnea can cause death instantly due to lack of breathing, but over time it causes high blood pressure and significant brain damage, including dementia. The other day, my boyfriend's mother commented that he seemed always tired. I replied yes, he is always tired because he suffers from sleep apnea and refuses to treat it, and that I know because, first, he snores, and second, I hear him stop breathing and gasp at night. This woman tells me the reason people snore is because they are very tired. Obstructive sleep apnea, no. It's because there is an obstruction. And she basically says sleep apnea isn't real or dangerous and that the body knows how to correct itself when something is wrong. Mind you, I am currently seeing a sleep specialist and was recently diagnosed with very mild sleep apnea, so I am quoting all the information the doctor gave me, like you say, dangerous, brain damage, etc., but she dismisses it completely, as if she somehow thinks she knows more than a damn specialist doctor. And now comes the worst part. This woman is a registered nurse. She should know better. My mother is also a nurse and has a lot of knowledge, so it baffles me that this woman is so ignorant. In general, she's a know-it-all, something I can't stand. Thinking it is perfectly fine for people to be tortured eternally for not believing in your God is especially toxic because it is part of a set of worldviews that lead to voting for laws that harm people. When something tragic or traumatic happens to you, you try to pretend you are okay and never talk to anyone about what you really feel. This happened to me when my mother was killed. I tried to keep up appearances and thought my pain would pass. Over time it faded, but in reality, it stayed locked inside me. The other problem was that my father was also traumatized by my mother's death, and I didn't want him to know how bad I was having it because I knew how bad he was having it. I didn't want him to collapse or add more sadness and pain to his life. By repressing all that, when I started dating my fiancé, all those emotions and feelings came to light, and dealing with that and all the stages of grief completely overwhelmed me. It wasn't good for my mental or physical health, particularly for me, because I tend to be a very stable person, and suddenly I had totally opposite feelings all the time. I literally thought I was going to be committed just because I had never experienced ups and downs like that. Finally, it was thanks to my fiancé's sister telling me her experience and how she started reading about the stages of grief to overcome it that I also started reading about them and finally succeeded. Typical chimney smoke. My grandparents only had a wood stove their entire lives. My grandmother died of a type of lung cancer that usually only affects smokers. Turns out wood smoke is highly carcinogenic. Most people just don't have it in their homes all the time anymore. Ruminating. And the more one ruminates on something, the deeper those neural connections become, making it harder to stop ruminating and creating a vicious cycle of suffering. What makes it even more complicated is learning to distinguish between ruminating, which is harmful, and processing information genuinely, which is healthy and necessary. Thinking obsessive cleaning is good. Nothing happens if you leave a cup on the counter. Nothing happens if you accidentally drop food. I don't want to live in a sterile house where every surface looks like an operating room, but I also don't want it to be kept that way or you get yelled at. The clutter of a hoarder's house isn't okay, but a little bit of clutter you can clean up. Yes. Source: my mother, who didn't have OCD but still got extremely angry if the house didn't look like a model home. We didn't even have many visitors. Overeating. Constantly overeating out of habit leads to cavities, heart disease, diabetes, increased risk of stroke, muscle deterioration, and many limitations derived from being overweight and lack of fitness, like running, hiking, playing with children, playing sports, etc. Not picking up dog poop. Many dog owners seem to think it's not important, but for whoever steps in it, trying to clean the shoe is suddenly a tremendous mess. I literally have in mind the 3 turds I must avoid stepping on when returning from work tonight. 2 of them are in dark areas, so I need to memorize where not to step. Part of my limited daily mental energy goes to tracking the location of my dog's poop. Focusing on the children and completely neglecting the marriage. Someday the children will leave home, and it will be just the 2 of you. Don't let yourself be carried away by an identity crisis when the children have left home and the only thing you have had in common for 20 years has been them. The partner comes first. Then, the children. I'm not saying children don't matter or don't need you, but putting them above the partner seems inconceivable to me. Learn to say no to your children. Saying yes when you wanted to say no. That habit seems small, but it becomes a way of living. You accept favors, commitments, invitations, jobs, all out of fear of looking bad. And in the end, you end up full of things you didn't want to do. I was like that. I said yes to everything, covering shifts, going out when I wanted to rest, listening to other people's dramas, and I felt emptier each time. One day I realized that saying no doesn't make you selfish, it makes you sane. But it costs because the guilt is strong. Learning to refuse without explaining too much is an emotional luxury few allow themselves. Canceling plans with others. To have a solid community, you have to be reliable. Currently, we tend to cancel at the last minute to avoid problems and because we don't feel like going somewhere or doing something agreed upon, but then we are disappointed when we need help and no one comes. While it doesn't have serious consequences when necessary or minimal, as a habit, it can cause isolation and loss of community. Biting your nails. I guess we all know it's bad for your teeth. I used to work with a woman who told me the story of her grandfather, who bit his nails. He ended up with a lot of stomach and colon problems related to the pieces he swallowed. I was horrified to hear this. It certainly helped me stop mindlessly biting. And I hope it helps someone else too. Please share it with whoever you think needs to hear it. Be kind, but be benevolent. That way you will avoid disappointments and the toxic habit of exchanging favors. You cannot live expecting others to treat you as you treat them or to do the same for them. They are not you. You can exhaust yourself with this mentality of being too compliant, and there will always be an imbalance in the results. Learn to focus your energy on yourself, to recharge, and to share that energy with others. Being a people pleaser, and not for obvious reasons. Over time, people will realize the lack of authenticity in your way of communicating, and this will make building real relationships difficult. It can also be harmful, as those who seek to please others tend not to give useful advice and only say what they think the other person wants to hear. I say this from experience. I had to distance myself from a people-pleasing friend, 14 years of friendship, because in a moment of reflection, I realized she would never give me a sincere opinion or question me. I felt I never truly knew her, and she didn't know herself either. Consuming other people's drama as if it were a hobby. People who live focused on others' problems, opining, investigating, suffering for gossip. Deep down, it becomes an addiction. You feed on others' chaos to not look at your own. It happened to me. I had a friend who always had some drama, and there I was listening, advising, wearing myself out. One day I realized I felt anxious just seeing her name on my phone. She was stealing energy that wasn't even mine. Since I put distance, I sleep better. I don't know what drama has, but it hooks you. It's like an emotional cigarette. You know it's bad for you, but you light another one anyway. Excessive dependence on GPS. The more I read about the subject, the more I realize how harmful it is to the brain. In fact, I have stopped using maps in known places because of this. Some say it could be related to early Alzheimer's due to its effect on the hippocampus, as the part of the brain that spatially maps the environment is not exercised. And I think I can attest to that as someone who practiced road cycling for a long time. Although navigation apps for cyclists exist now, I didn't use them on my bike, and that made me notice certain signs and landmarks I wouldn't have noticed driving with Apple Maps. When I see children or teenagers relying on GPS to get home from school, it gives me chills. A child who doesn't know their environment well is an even more vulnerable child. Constantly comparing yourself to others starts subtly, but then it can undermine any hint of self-esteem you have or may come to have. Comparison steals true joy. Also holding grudges. I believe some things aren't meant to be forgiven, but if you manage to overcome something without it affecting your whole life or harming your mental health, then it makes a big difference in your overall happiness. A bitter heart only consumes its owner. Negativity is contagious. It doesn't necessarily make others negative too, although it can, but it does pose a burden for those around them. My 3 boomer parents, 1 step-parent, have been like this, like a person with depression and anxiety who spends too much time dwelling on things. Being around them has been one of the greatest difficulties of my life. It is very difficult not only to change the behavior of the elderly but even to ask them to. If I were their parent, I might have some authority to change their attitude, but it is considered disrespectful to contradict someone older than you. And they have been practicing this constantly negative attitude for more than 70 years. It's exhausting. Another example is self-criticism. I know a lot of people, including myself, who make self-deprecating jokes like saying, "How stupid or ugly I am." And this is really harmful because you can internalize those thoughts and end up having a bad self-image. If you say this in front of insecure people or people different from you, you can worsen their feelings. For example, when I hear my friends say, "Oh my God, I've already eaten 800 calories today and it's 8 p.m. I'm so fat and haven't eaten well," when they know perfectly well that I suffer from binge eating disorder and am fatter than them. What I mean is to be careful with these self-deprecating jokes because they not only hurt you but also hurt others without you realizing it. You may think venting about others and complaining about what they do that bothers you is harmless, seeing it as a way to release tension or believing you are right and speaking your mind freely. However, from the listener's perspective, you seem like a blabbermouth and an untrustworthy jerk. If they hear you venting about various people, they will jump to conclusions and almost always rightly realize that you are also speaking badly about them. They will label you as toxic even before you realize why people have stopped talking to you or listening to your complaints. White lies. Honest communication is important, as is developing the resilience to tell and hear uncomfortable truths. I'm not one of those people who think, "I'm brutally honest, so some people can't stand me." Being diplomatic and being honest aren't incompatible, but people need to hear the truth more and communicate better. We all need to support each other and be more honest about our feelings and perceptions on a day-to-day basis. And I think we will all win. People waste 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 or more hours a day on their phones. It's crazy to think about all the wasted time that could be spent living life, learning new things, connecting with people, etc. I deleted Instagram last weekend, and this week I'm deleting Reddit. It makes me a little sad because I like it, but I can't limit usage when they are installed or available to the level I should. Do you know how Las Vegas casinos are designed to make you stay? These apps are also designed for you to stay as long as possible. We take bodily movements for granted. The saying, "use it or lose it," is very true for the body. Too lazy to bend down? Well, forget about sitting down and getting up from chairs easily when you're older. You only look at your phone and never look up at the sky. Forget about moving your neck. It costs you a lot to fully extend your arms, and so on. It's the little things that accumulate over time. If you don't want to end up in a wheelchair at 70, start moving. Attention office workers. Having an opinion on everything, even if you have no experience or knowledge on the subject. I am teaching this to my children now. They aren't teenagers yet. I would insist that not all thoughts have to be expressed. Some can stay in the head, and they need to actively listen to others, which means not arguing or expressing a contrary opinion while the other person is speaking. Simply listening and reflecting on the ideas they are sharing. What a better world it would be if people could go back to considering more than one point of view at a time. As a fan of strength sports and a former competitor, I can say that the use of performance-enhancing substances is increasingly common in men and women. And I have also seen people starting at younger ages. The use of performance-enhancing substances will always be part of bodybuilding and strength sports. And while there are ways to minimize the damage they cause to the body, I have observed increasingly reckless use along with people downplaying the harm they can cause. They believe that because they are muscular and fit, they are in good health, but the reality is very different. I have also seen friends my age, between 35 and 40 years old, with cardiovascular, liver, or kidney problems as a result of consuming these substances. Given the great influence social media has on problems like body dysmorphia, I can only foresee that the use of performance-enhancing substances will become more frequent. Worrying about others. If you worry too much, you erode your boundaries. As someone who has been an emotional support for much of my life, believe me, you don't want to be that person. Being kind and affectionate without limits only attracts toxicity into your life. No one is lucky enough to meet only good people. It's scary how some people take advantage of your kindness. It could make one cynical, but I am a realist. Many have suffered greatly from caring too much. Speaking badly of people constantly, even with reason, makes your life revolve around negativity instead of facing the problem and letting it go so it doesn't affect you anymore. It becomes especially harmful when a friendship is formed based on mutual hatred and the friendship is built on that hatred. If this continues, you could become as bad as the person you talk about, or even worse. It is very damaging for everyone involved. Apologizing for existing. I used to apologize for everything, as if I were a burden to society. I stopped doing it after divorcing my first husband. I threw myself into therapy and ended up becoming a therapist. Now I see the same thing happening to my 14-year-old stepson who just came out of the closet. I've been working with him and his mother, and both are in therapy. No way. When you have to be positive, especially all the time, toxic positivity is really bad for you. It's good to be positive, but it's also normal and healthy to feel your emotions if you are angry or sad, etc. Don't dismiss someone and tell them to be positive when they need to vent, talk, or cry with someone. That will make the person withdraw and feel stupid or weak. And they may not speak up in the future if they have problems. It can be really harmful. I am a people pleaser. I know it's wrong, but I can't help it. I feel terrible having to say no. If I have a skill or something someone wants or can use, why not give it to them? I would do almost anything for anyone. In high school, I was very good at math, so they asked me to do their homework. By the end of the last year, I was doing homework for about 20 different people and almost failed some subjects because of it, but all of them got excellent grades. I also gave my lunch to some girls because it looked appetizing to them. They took it every day, and although I was going to be hungry, it comforted me to know they had a good lunch. Also, I can't go out with friends because I always pay for everything. They don't even have to ask me, I just do it. I am too nice, and this is starting to ruin my life. Only becoming friends with those who approach you instead of actively choosing your friends and contacting people you want to know better. I ended up spending most of my free time with people I have no problem with, but with whom I knew I didn't click, simply because they were the ones inviting me to events or proposing plans with me. Suddenly, I felt out of place in my usual social circles, and in the end, most of the people I have spent the most time with cannot understand me as a person, since we are very different. I would say working too much. I say this from experience. I love my job and could do it 16 hours a day without a problem, but in the long run, it sinks you into a deep depression. I see recent graduates joining my company, and they make the same mistakes as me. Working late to prove their worth and get promoted faster. In the end, they don't get promoted faster, they burn out. Their boss takes advantage of them and assigns them more and more work, and their mental health and relationship, if they have one, suffer. I reached a point where I spent less time with my partner, didn't exercise, and drank too much coffee and Monster daily. I thought, I'll do it, and it will be worth it, but it was never worth it. Fulfill your work schedule or reduce hours if you can. Disconnect and dedicate time to the people you care about and take care of yourself. Don't waste your valuable free time generating money for a multi-million-dollar corporation. Doom scrolling, especially if you frequent websites that reinforce toxic beliefs or radical worldviews. It is a phenomenon. Our brain becomes what we feed it. For various reasons, I feel a deep fear and hatred towards others in general, and I tend to believe that we are, by nature, opportunistic and social cannibals and that no one can be trusted. The internet reinforces this idea constantly, and I can't stop because I am addicted to misery. I don't like the expression, slippery slope, but here it applies perfectly, and the danger is very real. Don't get carried away by the avalanche of negative news. The human mind is not made to receive so much information at once every day. You will hurt yourself. It's not entirely harmless, but it implies constantly evading responsibility and, basically, victimizing oneself. Someone like that will end up destroying all their relationships and will end up alone at home commenting nonsense on the internet at 3 a.m. because they like to blame others, which is toxic for relationships. I think we all know at least one person like that. Usually, it's the least successful one in their family. They love to ensure others know all the reasons why they struggle or can't do things because that way they avoid taking responsibility that they could be doing more in life, but they are simply lazy and have a bunch of excuses to justify why it's not their fault. Constantly being in treat yourself mode to the point that it affects your long-term goals. I don't mind treating myself occasionally, but using the treat yourself mantra to make unnecessary purchases or eat sweets in excess to the point that it interferes with your savings, spending, or health goals only adds stress to your life. Sometimes the best way to treat yourself is to prove to yourself that you can reach your long-term goals. The best treat yourself is creating a life you don't feel the need to escape from, and this generally implies having self-discipline. And thank you very much for watching the video, friends. Remember, you can comment stories you have regarding this question and comment which was the story that impacted you the most. Remember to leave your like, subscribe, comment, and share the video so YouTube recommends it to more people.